All right. All right. I guess I am live. I wasn't planning on doing this today, or rather, my this wasn't my yeah, I wasn't planning. Not doesn't sound right. I was planning to stream, was planning to do this. Wasn't planning to cover this thing because I didn't see it. Didn't know it was something to be covered. But I learned shortly before going live, it crossed my streams, so to speak, that Josh McCrowell of the RIse Up Comus blog had put together or published this portion of their Middle Earth Hexcrawl project on that contains the Shire. And I put a link to it in the show notes. I'm just putting a link in here in the chat that I'm now going to pin. That's got that link. So now, oops, we get Discord out of there. Now we can come here and take a look and see. Ooh, we got anonymous pandas and lorises in there. This is on on a Google Doc, so people can kind of see poking around in there. I guess they'll see that I'm in here, which I am. I don't know that this is in. I don't know if this is in a PDF format or what kind of formatting it's in. Can I zoom out a bit for the moment? I can't. Oh, it's all right. I'll just keep it at 100%. What is this? Okay. Let's see. Okay, they began. Basically, they began a daily writing project called the Middle Earth Hexcrawl, and this is an aggregate of that work. Stats are written for a Lord of the Rings game that does not exist. The assumption is that player characters are burglars who can be hired to take on adventuring or treasure finding opportunities professionally. And then some credit, some unofficial and official support. So they used, in terms of their, I guess, Appendix N for this, obviously Tolkien Beyond Tolkien. The One Ring, the starter set that has the Shire in it, the Realms, the Shire supplement from the classic Iron Crown Enterprises Middle Earth role-playing game, aka MERP. Pipe Dream Rollover Play Dead. I don't even know what that is. Is that a song? I don't know. And then Underhill by Water, which I guess is their own rule set, which I don't think I've read. I'm not familiar with. And then let's see. And then the Idrluna Archives has, I think, put together the actual map. If I remember. And I'm on there. I'm trying to do that Hexcrawl challenge, and I need to. That's a whole other thing. I need to get on that. Progress says middle of the Earth, center of the planet. Yeah, that kind of thing. And then let's see. Just going to zoom in here a bit more. Okay, morale, hexcrawling rules, certain water encounter events sourced from Goblin Punch's Hexcrawling V3, and then D4 Caltrops blog by K-Tray, which is for some population stuff. Great. Let's see. So this section is called Errantry. Quote, "It is a fair tale, that it is sad, as are all the tales of Middle-earth, and yet it may lift your hearts. A travel procedure looks something like this. In a pinch, use a Dolmenwood travel procedures or the entire rule book. It'll be fine." Now we have a new day dawns. Okay, so the players update so new day dawns. It's a new day. Players update the calendar. GM uses the map to determine where the players are, noting the terrain type. The GM determines the day's weather. Then you get your marching orders. The GM sets the stage. Players decide which directions to go, and then you begin the trip. Then you're going to narrate the journey. You use the map. Note the hexes the players are moving through. This determines the locations and sites of play. You're going to roll for a local event, roll for a wandering encounter, and then resolve that using the hexcrawling rules to figure out what's going on. And then finally, at the end of the day, players run out of travel points, use their hexcrawling procedures to narrate the end of the day. And the players will do all their upkeep stuff to handle camping and nighttime encounter procedures, if any. And there you go. So we have a calendar. Of course, it starts off the calendar section with, "You cannot have a meaningful campaign if strict time records are not kept." It's kind of funny that it's almost, I guess, is that probably the most famous thing, just in terms of penetration through different generations of the hobby? Is that probably Gygax's most famous phrase? There are probably more people who know that phrase or some variation of it, approximation of it, attribute to him than maybe anything else he's written, because I can't think of anything else that, as a phrase, that I would look at and think, okay, that, Gygax, right? Time coverage should be kept. It's kind of funny because he wrote so much, and what he wrote, he used a lot of words. He was not, I don't think anyone would claim he was a particularly concise author. So plenty of words, plenty of turns of phrases, but that's the one that kind of jumped out at people or just stuck. Crocus is the power of all caps and bolded text. That's true too. Let me take a sip here this is more of this tea for the working man. Been on tea this week. Okay, now the map. The map is used by the Idrulun Archive, and they were granted permission. So here's the Middle-earth map, which is, of course, is ginormous. Let me just see first. Is there a key for how big these hexes are? I don't see. Okay, I don't see one here. I'm not sure. And maybe it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, it matters for the scope of the size of things, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing a scale, and I don't remember. Should I? Well, we can download the full map. Okay, 12 mile. They're using a 12-mile map. All right. I will link to this in the chat. Also, Idrulun Archives 12-mile ME hex map. Okay, I popped that in the chat. I'll try to remember to add it to the show notes later. And there's some huge, it's another giant. Let me download that. Let me just swing this over, because maybe I'll get it, do that kind of two window thingamajiggy. That there, and then we'll put this here. Switch back here. We'll definitely need to be zooming in. Let's see, the Shire is more or less right here. Croco says about 12, let's see, 1,200 by 2,400 miles. I'll take your word for it. I'm not counting the hexes. But at least now we got to say. So each hex is 12 miles across. So that, or from, because it's different from side. It's different. It's plane to plane. It's plane to plane, 12 miles from, what I want to say, I'm just gonna say corners. I forget what the technical mathematical term. It's actually a bit long. They're wider than they are tall. All right, so we got this. We can kind of track that, which would be good. I probably should have my glasses on for this, because the numbers on those hexes are not. My glasses are all dirty. This is all coming apart. Okay. Narrating the journey. The GM narrates what occurs as the company travels. GM's goal is to create interesting decisions, memorable locations, and interconnectivity. By combining the static encounter of the hex contents with dynamic encounters, an alchemical reaction occurs. This is where the excitement of the game takes place. Hex contents are the static encounters described in the hex entry, the region's visible landmarks, settlements, common flora and fauna, NPCs, etc. Local events are noted in the hex contents. Roll a d6. If the dice matches one of the local events listed, an additional NPC, strange occurrence, or local happening is added to the description of the hex contents. The GM can then describe those events at one of the key sites. And then you have wandering encounters. These are things that happen to the players and their companions. This includes bad luck on a journey, strange events, wandering monsters, rumors told by passing travelers, and so on. You roll a d12. On a roll of 1 to 6, there's no wandering encounter for this leg of the journey. On a 7+, an encounter will occur. Refer to the wandering encounter table to see which one. Pro tip, for nested tables, use the result of the local event roll to avoid having to roll another dice. Note that Some rules will interact with local event or wandering encounter rolls. Treat rolls of less than 1 as 1. Treat rolls above the max as the max. So all that stuff makes sense. All right, so we got hex contents, local events, potential wandering creatures. Now it says for the leg of the journey. Are we talking about, are we supposed to do that every time we enter a hex or on the day? I'm not sure. We'll just have to, and of course, you can use whatever set of rules and procedures you like most. Quago says the size of Africa, which is pretty huge. Okay. All right, now we have an example of a synthesis. After beginning the day and establishing the weather, the company travels to an adjacent hex and decides to explore it. This gives the GM time to thoroughly show off the hex's contents. The hex contents of the region detail an abandoned tower in a forest as the major landmark. It has a secondary site of an ancient cistern. The local event is rolled. The GM knows that there are 1d20 escaped slaves in the region. They roll and note that there are 15 escaped slaves. Or 1d20, okay. The wandering encounter for the day also places 1d6 trolls in the region. They roll and note that there's 6 trolls, a tough encounter. And then you decide how to combine the details. The GM synthesizes these details together into a series of 2 or 3 connected scenes. Okay, Krako's off on the, okay, it's 1/10 the size of Africa. Yeah, you just said it to me and I just ripped it off, but yeah, I was thinking it sounds kind of small. But okay. Yeah, so not so ginormous. It's a decent size, I would guess. I don't know, decent for what? The size is the size. Okay. Rationalizing that the trolls need a place to hide during the daylight hours, they decide the trolls are encamped in the abandoned tower. To combine and layer the different encounters, they decide that the trolls have captured the escaped slaves and are holding them in the tower for dinner. To telegraph this detail, they decide to set a scene at the ancient cistern site. Perhaps one slave escaped the trolls that is now hiding in the cistern. They also decide that 2 guards are there in pursuit of the escaped slaves. The detail of the guards isn't derived from the random events, but makes narrative sense. Because 2 guards aren't a significant threat if fought, nor provide significant treasure, it feels okay to include them. So I think the idea here is, these are all inspirational. So if it makes more sense, now, I don't know, there's not really, I'm trying to think, where's the who's got slaves in this? Because I guess this is just a generic fantasy thing. So I'm wondering, like in Middle Earth, like who's got slaves? The trolls, at first I thought, oh, there's trolls and slaves. Clearly the trolls have enslaved some people, which I guess is just another way to run it, right? The trolls who can't be in the daylight have somehow frightened some folk or taken them captive or some other thing to press them into service. And so the slaves are kind of watching things during the day while they're, while the trolls are down. Croco mentions Easterlings. Do Easterlings have slaves? I don't remember in the books. Do you even get enough of Easterling? I don't know if you really get enough outside of military things. Do we get any sense that Easterlings have slaves? I'll take your word for it. I'm not a super genius, but it's a weird. It's a weird. Not I say a weird detail, but we're also at the Shire, so where are the Easterlings? If there are Easterlings at the Shire, that means that means the Fellowship's in trouble. If the Easterlings are at the Shire, Fellowship's in trouble. It's only an example, okay? But all right, they also decide that, okay, we got that part. Narrating the established scene and establishing scene. To set up the action for the day, the GM describes the weather and the region. The GM describes how the players can see a tower. Leading like the Tower of Pisa in the distance, they make their way towards it. And then an initial event. Okay, you can read through this. I think it's good, right? So you take the, you get your data from the hex, from the dice, and you fashion it to get a sense of the story of what's happening in that moment. So you have escaped slaves, you've got some trolls, and then you've got this tower. So how do you piece all these together? The trolls and the tower make sense. Okay, now you figure out what is the relationship between the people and the trolls. And you don't always have to do that. You could have them as 2 separate things. You could have it in that some group, maybe the trolls are hiding in the tower, and then people came to the tower for a whole nother reason, maybe to get shelter because they're escaped from somewhere. So maybe they're running away. They decide to take shelter in the tower. And then it's like, oh my gosh, there are trolls there. That's happening when the party shows up. There's just a whole other. So look at that. Just a different version of the same data, just made into a different scene or setup. then the one I was thinking of was maybe the trolls captured folk from a town. They've got some, they captured families. So they've got kids and maybe infirm and other folks down in the basement of the tower with them. And they send the other folk out to keep watch, do other stuff. And then the party finds some of those folks who are out, and that's what they're seeing kind of. And there's another version of the event. So you can, but this is really just good. I think if this speaks to you in terms of how he's laying out, because that's kind of what you're doing on the Hexcrawl. You're doing stuff. You're using the key hex keys. You're using wandering creatures if there are anything else that's going on. And then you as the referee, that's kind of the fun of it, in my opinion, is that you get these pieces and then you arrange the pieces on a board and then you translate that into a narrative that you're telling the party in terms of as they are traveling through this hex, what they see. Not necessarily, they may see everything that's happening. Oh my gosh, this is happening. You could see trolls and slaves and craziness, or it could be just those hints. Oh, you see these elements, and then you're kind of playing, you're in that back and forth with the party in terms of how do they respond to that? Because it could be they just turn around and go away. We're not handling, we get a whiff of how many trolls are there? 6. It's like, we can't, we're going to have to go get a bigger boat, basically. Or it could be, okay, we can handle that kind of thing. And then you can update, and then you just kind of update your map and stuff. Now you have this established tower and all this other stuff. So you kind of add that in and, you keep going. All right. So I'm not going to read all the paragraphs of the synthesis tips, but just the kind of headlines. Don't mix encounters together in a way that makes them more challenging. Don't mix encounters together to make them easier. Do mix things together that are interconnected or interesting. Do build on established details. Do give the players lots of information. Don't place the party's destination first. So I will read the text under the don't make them together in a way that don't mix encounters together in a way that makes them more challenging. So here's what the text under that, because I think that's a interesting point. A cart shouldn't break at the exact moment a dragon shows up. However, the cart could break the moment that a scout returns with the news that there is a dragon. There's dragon scat, really fresh dragon scat, only a quarter mile away, and that they're pretty visible from the air in their current position. Okay. So I think that, so here's, I guess I would amend this slightly. I would say don't mix encounters to make them more challenging. I think you can mix things together. So for instance, having the slaves and the trolls together makes the trolls encounter harder because you have to worry about these other people. You have these innocents that are potentially near the trolls, or depending on how you set up the scenario. You may have trolls and these innocents interacting, which means that if you're fighting the trolls, if you don't want to just hurt people or have people be in the middle of it, you become constrained. It does make it more challenging, but you didn't do that just to make it harder. It's what makes sense, what seemed to fit. That would be kind of my guiding light. Don't do it just to I got to make this troll encounter harder. Just do it because, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I feel like makes sense of what's going on. That's how I do it. And it's okay to me if when you're mixing them together, the sum of the parts is more challenging than what they would have been it's separately. But at the same time, that's not the reason why you did it. I think that's kind of how I would think about that. Cargo says, I wouldn't class a cartwheel breaking as an encounter. I think it is in the sense, Croco, that it's something that the party can interact with. And it could potentially change if you start to imagine they come across a wagon that's stuck in the road and its cart wheel breaks. Who's in the wagon? Where are they going? What are their circumstances? That could send you on a whole side quest of, I got to get to Mickle Delving and this person's sick and we got to do whatever. And that, what constitutes an adventure or an encounter? It's just a potential interaction between the PCs in the world that they decide to interact with or not. So it's an encounter. It's just what you do with it. If you should see a cart and the wagon wheel breaks and you just pass by, then sure. But there's definitely the potential there for however much more you want. Let's see. Casio de Miguel says, either way, the challenge should be anticipated in some manner. For the most part, I think it's fine to have surprise every once in a while. Sometimes things happen and you don't get forewarned. But yes, for the most part, that should be the exception to the rule. Even there could be a situation where a dragon's able to use, you roll up stormy weather and you roll a dragon. You decide to have this dragon pop out of nowhere. Once in a while it happens because people do get surprised and ambush is a thing and all that. But of course, depending on your system, something like BX, you're going to get surprise checks and things to kind of mitigate the fact that you're caught completely by surprise. But for the most part, your modus operandi should be that yes, things should get there should be a way to anticipate. You should have some room to maneuver. And I know that's an issue I found with the way some folks run Hexcrawls, where they will put their encounters at a distance where your maneuvering room is basically nil. It's like there are bandits on the road. It's like, okay, how far from the bandits are we? 30 feet. And you're thinking, and my thought was like, well, didn't we see them? Are we going hills and deep valleys where we don't have it? Like, what's going on where we couldn't see 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, a mile or half a mile or something in there, couldn't see bandits that are on the road, unless they're running an ambush, which I think is absolutely something that could happen. But, by the same token, you might say, well, if there are bandits set up on the road, were there not any rumors at the town we just passed through telling us to be careful? There's a lot of things going on. Not to say that surprise should never happen, but if all your encounters are working that way, then something's wrong. It should be, for the most part, not like that, and you can throw something in when it makes sense. And of course, like I said, I would definitely avail of the dice to determine if the party is really surprised or whether they get that kind of hair-raising, you feel like you're being watched or something doesn't seem right kind of thing like that. Casio de Miguel says that it's in reality you can get surprised, but considering the game aspect, having information is a pillar of agency. It is, but I think also surprise is also a game part, and I think there's an interplay there, and I think it's fine. Like, I think agency, it just becomes. I think you get too caught up in this agency. You even being surprised, you have agency. No one's taken agency away from you. You can still do it. It's not like you get surprised and you can't run away. You can't do things. It just changes the context a bit. But like I said, it should be, you should look at it like this is every once in a while. Like, there's all kinds of agency because when we were reading encounters yesterday, if you didn't catch it yesterday, I read through the second part of the Land of Eam, and there were encounters on there that took away your air, or didn't, that I don't want to say took away, but that they kind of, I guess it is, they kind of removed agency for the reason of that they wanted to make sure you interact with the encounter. So your attempts to, you would get sucked into things and that you have no way to get out of. But even something where a bandit jumps out in front of you, you still have a full range of possibilities and things to do. Some things are now more difficult, but nothing's really been taken off the table in terms of your response. Like I said, that said, I don't think that's how you should be necessarily running your campaigns. I think it's a problem if it's always like that, but I think it's also okay that, hey, every once in a while you could throw something in there. But I always think also lean on the mechanics. And I think there are reasons, same kind of game reasons, why truly surprising things is actually not that easy. Something like BX, you only have really a 1 or 2 in 6 chance of really surprising something. Unless you're a specialized thief, 2 in 6 chance, 33%. So, the dragon encounter I spoke of, if I'm doing it, I'm rolling that, and then you would most likely succeed. Then you would get that inkling, right? So there are some, there's safeguards, right? Just utilize all the mechanics that you're using because they generally help things out with that, it not becoming like too much of just everything surprising us all the time, which it should never be. Okay. All right. That's good. All right. How to read a hex entry. I think I can get it from here, right? I don't think we need that. So now let's get on to the wandering encounters. Casio de Miguel says they play mostly BX. Even rolling a surprise check for us requires a specific context. I mean, look, play the game however you want to play it. I'm not trying to tell you you're doing it wrong. If it works for everybody at your table, do it. I think some fun things can happen when surprise happens, and I also use it for monsters. So it's not a one-way street for me. But it's only sometimes it's not even a 33. Sometimes it's just a 6 chance. So I think it's a fun twist. But I think the thing is, in those systems, those rules are player facing, and that I think I appreciate. And that's maybe the thing, is that everybody knows. And that should be part of, at least if I'm explaining BX and I'm explaining, here's what it's like when you're running around, you have X amount of chance of being surprised, and these things can happen to be to surprise. I hear you, Cassio. It's all good. It is all good. I'm certainly not assuming you're trying to tell me how to play, or, as you say, impose your way. But I think it's key, regardless of what you're doing. Like with these procedures that we're reading here, make sure the party understands. Make sure your players understand, so everyone's on the same page with how everything works, so that you don't get in a situation where, because I think the crux of it is what do your players think it's unfair as a thing? Because that's usually what a lot of this comes down to, is it wasn't fair. This, because you perceive it, maybe the results thing is this happened to me and it was not fair. And usually the fairness comes down to, I didn't have a chance to respond to X, Y, or Z, whatever. And if you're playing kind of above board, and in the game I played on Thursday night, right, Daniel's game, if we're traveling through the wilderness, Daniel will and we get an encounter, Daniel will say, okay, roll a surprise check, and one of us will roll it. And it's just like, we all know the routine. So there's never a chance where someone's going to be like, we got surprised and it wasn't fair, because we all know that's part of the risks and we get it. As opposed to in some other games that I've played in, people aren't telling you all the things and stuff's just kind of happening and you don't know, and you want to go, well, could we have done something or whatever? And you just don't know because the rules are opaque. The sitch is opaque. All right. Shire rule encounters. D12. 1 to 6 is no encounter. On a 7, you run into the Knights of the Road. These are a group of martial hobbits who have formed their order based on the land grant from the King of Arnor, carried the provision that they protect and maintain the King's Road. Their wives soberly point out that there hasn't been a king for over 900 years, and their husbands are basically just LARPing. When you encounter them, roll a d6 to see what they challenge the company to do. And then there's a another subtable for an explanation. So you might ask them to joust the turnip knight, reenact the Battle of Greenfields, have an archery contest, a pony race, repair a bridge, or do road maintenance. That's good. I like that. You might run into a traveler, such as Tin Kettle Tom, Bungo Hopalong, Donald the Dwarven Merchant, Gerda Cotton, a messenger, or Gandalf. Wow, so you got a chance if you run into Gandalf. Sassy. Let's see. Okay, so curiosity. So the way this is, there's basically two kind of, basically sort of a nested tables here. So the types of encounters you can get are, nothing, run to a faction, which is just one, in this case, Knights of the Road. You can run to a traveler, of which I just rattled off a few. You can run to a curiosity, which might be an old water pump, some magpies, a carpet of moss, some gregarious goats, some hedgehogs, or a verdant smell. You also might have a travel event, which could be weather worsens, some kind of logistical issue, someone's sick, an animal comes up lame, your boots might have gone bad, and look at this. And I guess some kind of, is this supposed to be prophetic? It's called Things That May Be. As a random burglar passes by a pool or pond, they seem to see an image shimmering in the water. Ask them if they want to spend one hope for a vision of a possible future. If they do, they may ask the GM any question and receive some vision of the answer. And their inspiration for that. Okay, I like that little bracketed inspiration. This is from the One Ring First Edition, Journeys and Maps. Now you can have what I guess we call formal encounters. So there could be a big dog, some gore crows, an angry farmer, sloggers. These are some hobbit bullies, some bounders, or Nar Deadtooth, a dwarven tramp who is secretly a servant of the necromancer. So we're getting a sense here, because I don't think maybe there was a year given, and I probably was, and I don't know the years of the Shire that well, but we're clearly, wherever we are in the timeline, Sauron is yet to be revealed, and he's still under the guise of the necromancer, which would mean that the Hobbit is either pre-Hobbit or, I guess, during the first half or 2/3 of the Hobbit, just before the necromancer is unmasked, which happens sometime while Gandalf's away, while Bilbo and Bilbo and the dwarves are kind of mucking around. I guess sometime between Mirkwood and the Battle of Five Armies, I think is when it was somewhere around there. Gandalf is gone doing business, and it turns out he's rooting out the Necromancer with the help of some other folks. And then we have some info. I'm not going to read through the details on the Challengers and Knights of the Road, but you have it there for you. We see you have some merchants, and you can basically buy some stuff like from Tin Kettle Tom. You can buy a tea kettle, an umbrella, a poncho, slate and chalk, silvery bells, a pocket watch, a portable bath, a Hobbit baby doll, a washboard, a bag of marbles, a hand mirror, or a waistcoat or waistcoat. Is that how they pronounce it? I think it's not actually pronounced a waistcoat. I think you pronounce it a waistcoat. I think something like that. And okay, great. I wonder if some of these they're sort of specific, like the baby doll and that. I wonder if they have if there are other keys that reference some of these things that you could buy. And Bungo Hopalong also has some stuff, and so does Dunnel the Dwarf Merchant. Now we get into the settlement encounters. This is in the towns. Again, 1 to 6, no encounter. It seems like all the 7s are going to be factions. Krago says, I guess Middle-earth doesn't run on the gold standard. I don't think it did. I don't remember. Because, they don't actually use a lot of coin in Lord of the Rings, right? Because other than in Bree, like once they leave Bree, isn't that kind of the last time that any kind of currency is important at all? Because Frodo and Sam, they don't go to, and there's no other tavern visit, I think, in the entirety of Lord of the Rings, right? It just this doesn't come up. Cassio de Miguel says it doesn't seem to be gold as XP oriented. I don't think it would really be possible. I think it would be hard to do a Lord of the Rings game if you're really trying to stay true to the material and it be a gold for XP thing. I think just thematically, you could have, if we're doing The Hobbit, I suppose you could, because Bilbo does come back with a whole boatload of treasure. So one could then say from that, see, he did the gold as XP and it worked. And it does work for that. But I think in the larger Legendarium, it doesn't work thematically, because a lot of that kind of ambition for gold is what leads to dragon sickness, which tends to be seen as bad. Tends to be a bad thing. The folks who are greedy, like Thorin at the end of The Hobbit, where he's becoming too greedy and it's kind of taken over. These are the things that are the weapons that end up being, I guess, I shouldn't say weapons. They end up being vulnerabilities that make you open to kind of the dark side, so to speak. So it would make sense to me from that way. At least if I were running the game, if I was running the game, I probably would not do gold for XP. I would figure something else out. Krakow says the Fellowship runs on favors or influences. Most of their members are nobility, like the OD&D castle rule where you can challenge knights to get hosted by them. Yes, though the nobility also doesn't come up terribly much. Yes, they are. Pippin, right, is Peregrine Took, right, is the heir of and like Buckland, right? But really, I don't know if that really enters into much. He becomes what, a steward to the King of Gondor, but that's not because he's a noble. I think he does that because he wants to repay Boromir's sacrifice, right? It's kind of as a way of making amends for Boromir, or not even amends. Just, I don't even know what it would be, right? He does, in kind of Boromir's memory, becomes not a steward. He becomes I don't know, whatever. What's the word I'm looking for? More like I guess he becomes a guard or a guardian, whatever. I don't remember when the book, whatever the name of the title he takes on there. A servant of the steward sort of thing. But it's not because he's noble. And I don't think that nobility really enters in anywhere where they start going into places saying, again, you go back to Bree, when they're at the Prancing Pony, they're not doing anything in influence because of their noble standing. They're just folk getting a room. And say Elrond's place, it doesn't, I don't think Elrond or those folks care one little bit. I don't think they ever comes up that they are somehow noble born, and I don't think Elrond and those folks will put any stock by it anyway, and it's certainly not Galadriel, and I don't think it comes up. It doesn't really come up. It's interesting backdrop on who these people are when they start, but it's not Game of Thrones. People are not going into places saying, I am so-and-so, son of so-and-so, and I demand an audience. Like, that's just not the only person that really comes up with is Aragorn, because but not even in his way. It's almost that it's something he has to deal with in a separate way, right? It says mostly just Gandalf telling people to let them in. Let us in. Yeah, I mean, they're, it's a dark time. It is a dark time. So we have another faction that in the settlement encounters the lads who don't do nothing. And let's see. And they can also challenge the party to do some things like making a slab, poison plants. That's not nice. Tell a ghost story, throw some knives, drink some strange liqueurs, or bother the stuffy. There's also a passerby, which is just you can meet an NPC of the town. There's some curiosities, a body play, some cleaning taking place, some collections being taken. See a shooting star. I guess it's in the night. I don't know. A petition or a surplus harvest, and then you can strike up a conversation. There's also a notice. I'm not sure what notice is. Increase the company's notice rating by 1d6. When it reaches 20 plus, the GM triggers some doom and resets 0. I see. So kind of like a little longer term, almost ticking clock of things. And then we have some town events. Nar Deadtooth could show up again. Some hobbits could elope. Someone might have fallen down a well. There's a rampaging bull. Kids are cruel, or there's a festival. Then we have some info on the challenges from the lads who don't do nothing. Man, they're really this version of the Shire. This version of the Shire is kind of funny. It's like the Bowery Bunch team. Everyone's like the Little Rascals and the Three Stooges are taking over the Shire. Okay, we got some rumors. I'm gonna roll a random rumor because we don't need to read them all, right? One rumor to read them all. All right, I got 11. Lucky number 11. And 11 is Farmer Lightfoot and Farmer Longdweller have had a rivalry for time out of mind. They're always stealing each other's things, a bit like you burglars. And this one is true. So they're doing the true-false thing here. So we get to see which ones are true, which ones are false. This one is true. And they're in 46.57, which is where on our map here? 46... 46, no, 47, 46, 44, 57, this one right here. Interesting, this one doesn't have a, I guess some of them don't have, it's interesting that they don't have, not everything has, they didn't label all the hexes. I guess because they didn't want it to coincide with the river. Or, no, wait, did they? No, they didn't. I thought maybe it's the river, but maybe it's just because they don't want it. I don't know. I was going to say they don't want to overlap with the names, but no, that one overlaps. I don't know why some of these don't have label. In any case, we got it. It's right outside Hobbiton. There we go. Okay. Keep on moving. Now we get settlements. These are really, I mean, I really appreciate the concise layout for reference here with, okay, all the settlements listed out. Now we got all the quests that are going to be in here that are laid out, which is cool. And so you can reference. It's nice because what I like about this is it makes it easy to find if you know the name of the quest and you lose track of it, you flip away whatever because you're referencing it. You can come here and you can quickly get over here and then get to the hex where things should be. Lot of farthing. Says Croco, yeah, there's lots of farthings. Yep, all kinds of farthings. East farthing, north farthing, south farthing, west farthing. Yep. There's a bunch of quests here. So we have some points of interest and some location adventures. Now we're getting into the hexes. So I'm not going to read all the hexes. Okay, that would be insane. I don't know how many are in this document. I don't know. I just zoomed into what is mostly the Shire area on this map. I don't know. Maybe this is the better. This is about right. I don't know. Gamwich? Longcleave? I don't know exactly. It looks like, I would guess that this Diamond, this valley or this space within the Diamond Hills would basically be the Shire. Actually, it would be beyond, because Tom Bombadil's house is definitely not in the Shire. So, and this is the Barrows over here. Yeah, so the Shire, I think, ends right around this hex outside the river. Sarn Ford is definitely the southern tip. I'm not familiar with these spots over here, but there we have. So I think that's that's kind of our bounce. So there's Gamwich, which I guess we'll read through here. This is a rural let's try this again. Gamwich, a rural hobbit village sat atop the far downs. It is reachable only by crossing several sturdy made rope bridges that span gaps between the hills along the path from Tightfield, which is here. The manufacture of such bridges is the ancestral art of the town. Too small to have a public house, alewives and homebrewers keep the village in provender. I like this a lot because I've used alewives, and I like this. I feel like one of the things that gets, I don't want to say overstated, but in the fantasy version, villages have all kinds of shops, and it's like you have a little mall in every settlement, and I dislike that. I don't like it. So for my own stuff, I've toned that stuff way back. So in villages and like my setting, you won't find public houses. You might find it there is a crossroads, but then most likely you've got something more akin of a town than a village. But alewives, which are essentially that you'd have just an alewife, and the reason why it's alewife was what you'd have is you'd have a farmer, and maybe even more than one, I don't know. And the men are doing the farming, and what the women might do to earn some extra money, whatever, is brew ale in their house, and then you could go get ale. And and the thing is with ale, my understanding is it doesn't keep long as beer. So it's something that's really a short-term beverage. You have it, it's good for a little bit of time, and then you just drink and you're gone. And so you kind of have these alewives that would fulfill that function in villages, kind of earning extra income for their families while the men are out doing other stuff. Cassidy Miguel says it's fine to have so many hobbits and some races having absolutely no idea of their existence. Yeah, well, I think in the grand scheme of things, it's not that many. But this part of the setting is we're in Hobbit country, but this is the only place in the world where these hobbits are. So these, however big this kind of stretch, this diamond in between these hills are, more or less, or not even half diamond, maybe this triangle. That's all the hobbits in Middle Earth. So if it seems like it's a lot, it's only because they're all here and absolutely nowhere else. Except for Bree. Where is Bree? Buckleberry. There's the road. Oh, there's Bree. Yeah. An arrow and then the little pocket over here. Okay, so Gamwich, we got that part. So we got alewives, which I appreciate. Often here, Diamond Mud, hobbit, beautiful blue eyes, welcoming good wife, is looking to trade fresh mushrooms for a coil of wonderfully woven hemp rope. It is a beautiful day in Gamwich, and here is a terrible goose. And also Patwort, a hobbit glaring suspicious, and a thatcher, suspicious of any outsiders, and will follow around non-hobbits with an evil glare. Well, I get it. Let's see, in this, I have to remember I remember the diamond thing is kind of like you could run into that hobbit, but I guess this is I guess this might be an adventure, right? You go location-based adventure. This one's called Raid the Ranger's Library. Lefty Bowden, a hobbit, short ginger hair, spitfire, and a scholar, a member of the Order of the Eagle, is working on her book. It is called The Shuttered Smile? I don't know. It catalogs the lore of midwives, cunning women, and gammers. She lacks a primary source, referenced several times in older books, but now lost, called Hobwife Herb. She looks to hire the company to steal a copy she believes to exist in the secret library, the Book Sword. That's in 41.47, and that one's taken from Merp. Very cool. He's grabbing all these different sources and throwing them together, because Merp stuff, it's not, I'm sure the PDFs are floating out there and stuff, but, not really easy to find. I don't know if maybe they're on drive-through at this point. I don't know. Certainly, physical copies are probably pretty scarce. Let's see. Where's 4147? It's got to be. I would imagine it can't be too far from Gamwich, can it? Okay, Gamwich is 40. These are all the 44s, 45s. Where do we say we're going? It's in 41. Oh, I was going the wrong way. No wonder. Okay, 44, 43, 44. Do I need to go up? Oh, okay. So 41. What the heck? Hold on. I lost my map. Actually, that's the one thing I accidentally. Okay, I gotta zoom in again. Hold on. All right, let's get back to where we were. All right. 41 is up. 41, 47. Oh, I'm getting confused as to which way I need to go. Yeah, wow, it's pretty far away. That's way over here. The one thing I would do I guess he's just giving you we grabbed the map not from his document, but from the original one. What I would do is probably go through and mark these on whatever your map is so that you have these. But that's it's not that far from me. I went all the way, I went all the way, woo, just to come back. It's not that far away, but you got to leave the Shire. And I guess maybe there's some kind of ruin there. I don't know, but cool. Let's see. King's Leap Hill, 46, 49. 46. 49, right here. Here, the round-topped hills of the Far Downs tumble down into grasslands. As a landmark, one of the tallest hills is bald. It is called Kingsley Hill by the local hobbits. Signs of an ancient battle still scar the top. The region defines a western edge of the Shire. Those who sleep in this region have dwimmer dreams of a brave last stand, successfully holding back the forces of Angmar while the king takes the escape path back to the fort. Cool. There's a secret road that's hidden, a landmark to those with ranger lore. Beneath Kingsley Hill is the entrance to a sunken path. From the hilltops, the path and those on it are all but invisible. The hidden path runs from this hex and connects to, let's see, a bunch of hexes. There's 7. Let's see, 4850. Down there. Down there. No. 4850. 4950. Or sorry, here, 4951. 5051. And ends at 51 and 52, where it exits out of a cave, and you get to go down to Harbottle. So you got like a little secret path. Very cool. I'm not going to, like I said, I don't want to read everything because that would just be counterproductive. What's another? 4850. 4850 is. Oh, and some of these looks like we get the same. Oh, that's 4953. Sorry, 4850. Here, right above Greenholm, there are beavers and a woodcutter. I mean, not just that. Let's go. I'm curious. Let's see what else we have. The Fox Downs. What are we? Where's some stuff on the other side? Let's get to the 4861. Let's see what do they have something for Tom Bombadil? Let's see. What are we doing here? 4752. Let's see stuff in the 60s. Let's just get some other. Scrolling. What town is this? Mickle Delving. Nice. Or Michel Delving if you're French. Okay. Hardbottle. Okay, we're Hardbottle. We're still on that side. Where are we going? I mean, I don't know how long this took him to put together, but I mean, there's a lot of work put in here. A lot of work. Foothills of Evendim. Or Evendim? I don't know if it's 4158. Where's that? 4158 right here above Greenfields. A wild country of fir trees on conical hills, the ground covered in moss. At dusk, Mist like bluish smoke fills the region. That's a really nice turn of phrase, too. Crocker says, lots of work still left until the entire map is filled. Yes. Though, you're going to hit there are some big, we'll zoom out. There are some spots, it's actually going to be, there's probably a little bit of a challenge. I'll look at a little chess issue. Going to be a little bit of a challenge in some of them, because there's a lot of country that's been essentially depopulated that you're going to have to either, one, you could do like that one, where you could do a lot of abbreviated, you're going to get some abbreviated hexes for stuff, or you're going to have to really, really delve in your imagination to get something, put in some points of interest that, that are both kind of creative, but also matching the surroundings. So, but I imagine there's going to be some stuff, just looking around here, there's a lot of Tharbad, which is a ruin. This is where Boromir, I believe Boromir crossed over here, trying to head to, Elrond. I believe that's the way he came, in like his horse and stuff, and he had to cross, or something happened. Anyway, I think Boromir, that was kind of on his route. But you have a lot, look at all this empty grass land hexes. And there, I don't believe there's anything there, because this is through this was Eregion, which became Eregion, and then Arnor, which both got blasted by the forces of Sauron. Let's see. Deep Hollow. Yeah, right. So, Cassio de Miguel mentions Boromir coming from Minas Tirith. Yeah, he came from Minas Tirith. There, he tells about it. It's in Fellowship. He had a hard time. Like, he took him forever to get to. And yeah, so he came. I want to say he came. And this is what's amazing about this map, is you can just see everything. There's Peladagir. Here's Minas Tirith. So I believe, either one of these basically the same area. And he came along following the road. And then I want to say, and I think he got a horse. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure he passed all this way, passed through. And then somewhere around here, he lost his horse, got thrown, and got across the river. And then he just kind of wandered generally up and found his way. Crocker says, the true challenge is detailing the empty hexes. Yes, I would probably region these out so that I could cover the characteristics in one, I might take, look at this, there's this huge swath of area. And I'd probably make some generic for this whole area, some things that are matching characteristics wise. And then I might lean into the random stuff for individual hexes, as opposed to writing out keys for everything. And not every hex has to have a key anyway, but if, that's kind of a philosophical, practical, however you want to call it, right? But I'd want to talk about, like, you're in, I don't know, maybe you're in Southern Eregion, and I would say, these are your basic bounds, and within these bounds, this is what the land is like, and then special stuff can come up as you wish. Let me see, let me pull up let's do another hex if I can find one. There's plenty, I'm just going to see one. The Marish, 50, 60, there's Weathertop. Let's get back over to the Shire. Sorry, there we go. 50, 60, right here. The Marish, a boggy, fertile farmland of reclaimed marsh. The farmlands consist of fields and meadows with hedges, gates, and dikes for drainage. Leaving the causeway costs 1 endurance, as the region is difficult to traverse, full of bogs, ditches, briars, and fences. On the east edge of this region, the Brandywine is impassable. And you can meet a squirrel, or you can find some mushrooms, or you can find Bill Trimford, the slumbering peddler. Cargo says they would make the map first and then put hexes over it like it was originally done, merely as a way to measure distances. Sure. However it works. I think the nice thing with this method is the terrain. And of course you can determine how much terrain stuff you want to use, but you have the terrain kind of information. It's a little bit harder on those maps because you don't necessarily get the detail that you want or the specificity that you want. Whereas this, you can kind of, I like it. You can just be clear, forest, swamp, grassland, hills. But yeah, this is obviously, it's more work to create the whole hex map for it, as opposed to just overlaying it off of a map of Middle Earth or the classic, a version of that map, whether it's classic or whatnot. But I think having the abstract hexes, I like it, and it kind of it almost in a way separates you from the classic versions of Middle Earth, which maybe you see it a little bit differently because you're not looking at your classic map, but you're looking at this abstracted version of the map. All right, let me see here. So I want to see something in the old. Can we get to like the 49? I already passed it. 5160. No, I mean more. Let's see. What do we got here? Brandywine Bridge. Where's Brandywine Bridge? Brandywine Bridge is 4761. So right here. Let's see. The Ferry and Fair Markets, the Sworn, Arrow Tree. Okay, actually, no, that's it. So there ends the last hex in the Shire coverage is 4462, which is 4462. So not quite. I guess Bree isn't technically in the Shire, right? Because Bree is in Breeland. Bree is its own thing, so that makes sense. Yeah, stopping. I mean, the Buckleberry, the river. Sorry, the Brandywine is the. Oh, it's probably the classic edge anyway. And the final entry, flax fields, rolling fields of flowering flax and outlying farms. Hobbit farming families are often in the fields here. The river is impassable on the eastern border of this region. And then you might run into some prospectors. 6 dwarves, led by Danny Bitespear, dwarf, scarred eye, erratic, and a miner, are prospecting along the west bank of the Brandywine. They think wrongly that they found sign of gold and will try to bully, frighten, or hurt interlopers to keep them away from it. All right, well, there you go. Some angry dwarves. I mean, this is a lot of work, and kudos to Josh for getting it out there. And look, obviously, it's. I appreciate keeping some of the original source books. Obviously, some is being done for free. You could have easily shaved the serial numbers off this stuff. I mean, it would you had to lose all the Middle Earth references, I suppose, if you did. But it's just a really neat resource to just get you if you want to get into Middle Earth and muck around in it as a hobbit. And it'll be interesting if, I presume this continues, when each one of these that covers a different area for one of the peoples will then kind of concentrate on those people. So here in the Shire portion, the assumption here is you're playing hobbit burglars, or really just hobbits. I guess hobbit ne'er-do-wells, hobbits with too much time on their hands, who are just out doing stuff. And then maybe when you get to, Rohan, then you're playing more, and then the emphasis is being more on a rider of Rohan. And then, of course, if you're in the Iron Hells, and it's dwarves and Lothlorien and potentially Elrond, different sorts of elves. And of course, in Gondor proper, you've got, Gondorian stuff. And then maybe you could have in the kind of ruins all around here, this stuff, kind of rangery. I mean, the Rangers are all over this area anyway, because they're patrolling, keeping the hobbits safe. And you can see how, branching out from this, the hobbits are in this nice little pocket, which does make it hard to kind of find them a little bit, because they're bracketed by hills on pretty much every side. Lines of hills kind of cut them off a lot in many ways, right? And you did have Arnors up here, so at some point they had communication. There was a major road here, but because it was all destroyed, and none of the enemy that came into here made it out to really send back word of much, they got to be kind of hidden for a long time, hidden in their nice little pocket, away from the rest of the world. I mean, they really have, they're hidden inside hills, and then they've got these, mountains keeping them away. There's Mordor down there. So, yeah, this is really cool. Cassidy Miguel says the Men of the North project, the Shire during this time, is what protect the Shire. Yes, that's what I was saying. Yeah, the Rangers are patrolling the outskirts, so they're wandering around here, keeping bad stuff at bay. Yep, and Aragorn was definitely doing that. There is some interesting stuff you get into with kind of young Aragorn, because he had all kinds of adventures that are only hinted at maybe in the appendices, and you get some little tidbits. He had he because he's older, because Aragorn He's one, as a having more of that Numenorian blood, the blood of Westerness. He's longer lived. He's like 80 years old at the time of The Hobbit, I think, something like that. And he actually had been a trusted lieutenant or something of, I want to say it's Denethor's father, Ecthelion or something, maybe. He was a hero of some earlier conflict. Like, he did some stuff, and you could have some fun, I think, if you wanted to kind of get into that somewhat. I mean, I don't know how it's up to people who are smarter than that to get it. But I mean, there's some neat things in there that they just kind of hint at. Yes, the man says, I'd watch young Aragorn, got to be careful. Better than young Sheldon. Ugh, I don't like young Sheldon. I don't like old Sheldon, or I don't like middle Sheldon. I don't like Sheldon at all. I mean, nothing against the actor stuff, but I could not stand those. Could not stand those shows. So yeah, but yes. So I also would much prefer young Aragorn. The Adventures of Young Aragorn. All right, folks, we'll go pick this up and give it a look if you're at all interested in it. Lots of good info, lots of good stuff. I may I'll have to reach out and see, because I have some hexcrawling rules also, and I'd love to do like a little like, hey, here's how I would use my hexcrawling rules with this if you wanted to do something a little bit differently. So I may need to see about doing that. I'll have to reach out and see if it'd be all right if I referenced this material in some way. Folks, have a great weekend. Enjoy the holiday season. If if you're part of those holidays, I think that a lot of holidays around now. But anyway, just enjoy the season, enjoy your time, whatever it may be. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you get to have it. Otherwise, just stay safe. Yeah, game on, everybody. I will talk to you later. Bye now.